Welcome back to the Talking Pools podcast, your go-to source for everything wet, wild, and wonderfully misunderstood in the pool world. I'm Natalie Hood, Director of Education and Network Development for The Grit Game, and today we're tackling a topic that's, again, often overlooked but absolutely critical: aquatic leadership. Across our industry, there are plenty of myths that shape how people think about training, management, and operations. From the idea that one program can fit every region to the belief that young staff can't lead effectively or that equipment problems always come down to budget. But the truth is, leadership in aquatics is far more nuanced, and rethinking these assumptions can unlock stronger teams, smarter solutions, and healthier facilities. Today, I'm joined by Maddie Van Diver, company trainer, maintenance supervisor for Pool Butler, who brings firsthand insight into training, staff development, and operational strategy. Today, we're going to bust some myths, share some experiences, and give you practical takeaways to help elevate leadership in your aquatic programs.
You know what time it is? Wednesday vibes on the Talking Pools podcast. 1, 2, 3, 4. Sun up, tools out, route rolling fine, but I'm tuning in, yeah, Nally's on the line. Guess at the ready, stories that shine, from filters to heaters, they tell it in time. Hey, Wednesday, Natalie lead the way, Talking Pools podcast make the week feel irate. Hey, Wednesday, knowledge start to play, Natalie and the crew keep the blue water happy.
Before we dive into these myths today, Maddie, can you give our listeners kind of a brief history of your background and how you came to your role at the Pool Butler?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me today, Natalie. Definitely honored to be here. So a little bit about me. I was a swimmer growing up. So pools were always kind of home. So if I wasn't swimming, it was, fishing, just out on the lake, just around water some way, shape, or form. So I've always loved water and being around it. It's kind of my home, as I like to say. Once I kind of turned age of 16, I started working as a lifeguard at Whitewater, Six Flags Whitewater here in Georgia. I was a wave pool guard there for a summer. And then that kind of just started the passion in the aquatics industry for me, especially on the safety side, and everything like that. So I just started there and then did pool guarding for one summer, definitely very different from each other. And then I graduated high school. I started to work retail for about a year after that. It was not the same as aquatics, So between that and my dad passing away when I was 19, I kind of switched over to started teaching swim lessons. Kind of found my happiness again in my groove with that. And from there, I started teaching there at Atlanta Swim Academy here in Georgia. Fantastic place, and everything. And then I went to Lifetime Fitness after that. And then I ended up at another pool service company about 2 years after being at Lifetime. And that's how I started on this side of the industry. So, for years I was coaching swim team, teaching swim lessons, all that kind of stuff. And then, never knew a little bit about the chemicals and stuff, but not crazy amounts. And then started servicing pools at my last company, and then I met Tim, the owner here, and stuff like that. And I had left my old company originally to take an opportunity to do home renovations and everything like that. Just kind of a niche that I was kind of interested in, especially coming from my family that does plumbing my whole life. Like, they own plumbing companies, so it's kind of an area I kind of knew a little bit about and stuff. So it was just a perfect storm of opportunity that kind of happened. So I took it. Same thing kind of with retail. It just wasn't happy for me. There's no happiness there. So I came back to the pools. I called Tim because, like I said, I'd met him, through different PHTA events throughout the industry and stuff. So gave him a call and he said, come on over. And so I did and started as a maintenance tech for him. I ran our whole commercial route my first summer there. And
Wow.
by the end, yeah. And then by the end of the summer, I became one of our repair technicians and everything like that. And then I'd say about 8 months to a year as a repair tech. Tim asked me if I wanted to be a maintenance supervisor. I said yes. Rest is kind of just history from there. It's just kind of just been growing and growing and growing more and more. As of, yesterday, January 1, I am now, January 1, 2025 was my original start date of having this company trainer title. So that's kind of how that started. And that just kind of grew just because that's where my passion stems at the end of the day. I'm a firm believer our team is only as strong as our weakest link. So I'm gonna do everything I can to bring them up to where they need to be. We have a standard and an expectation, and we expect them all to be there. And on top of that is, say not every customer works out, right? Some are there, some are not. And we don't want us to, say we do part ways with a customer and then another company comes in. We don't want our reputation on the line of having, oh, well, they did this, that, and the other wrong and stuff. Like, we don't want that. So, we try to, elevate us as a company and also be very involved within the industry to, be the standard almost kind of situation. So that's kind of how I came into this role, and day to day, it depends if I am doing maintenance stuff or if I'm doing training stuff. It really is back and forth, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I love
I
what I
love
do. So,
I feel like I've spoken to quite a few people so far, and they're like, "Yeah, I started out as a lifeguard. I was a water safety instructor. I did, swim coaching. I tried to do something else and really wasn't my niche. And then I went right back to the aquatics industry, and that's kind of where I was. You know that lifeguarding, swim instructor, swam for years. Tried to go competitive, didn't really work the way I wanted it to, and that's okay. I flipped that negative into a positive and started teaching, and it's always been a big passion of mine. And I love what you said that you're finding the weak link and zoning in on that and trying to improve it for the company as a whole. And I agree, not every customer is the right fit for you, and every company is not right for every customer. So I love it. Well, this is perfect because again, you and I would say are younger in the aquatics industry. And so who better to talk about aquatic leadership than with Miss Maddie? And also, I apologize. Forgot. You were put up for quite a few nominations last year in 2025.
yes, there's a few. There's a few.
Which ones were you nominated, if you don't mind sharing? Because I think one's still pending.
Let's see. The Pentair Pool Pro Award was on. That one's actually still pending. The results come out, I want to say the 7th, so next Wednesday or something like that. Then I was 30 under 40 for was Pool Pro magazine, I think is the one
Yes.
it is. Yes, Pool Pro magazine. I was a 30 under 40, and then also nominated for 30 under 40 Female of the Year for Pool Nation. And then as well as Talking Pool's Top 10 Mentor.
My goodness, girl, you are racking them up and keep going. Don't stop. That is awesome. And you're, despite the results of what they come out on the 7th, you have always been a winner in my book.
Well, thank you, thank you. I'm just honored to be nominated, especially with some of the names that these awards I've been nominated. I'm like I'm up there with some of the greatest legends that you hear of in this industry. So I there's nothing to be upset about.
Yep, I agree. You're making waves and I love it. Well, as we talk about training programs, I wanted to start with our first myth. And one is that training programs, they really do fit all regions.
So here's the thing. Here's what I always say. You and I don't learn the same
Absolutely.
at all.
We do not.
I don't have two techs that learn the same way either. They may have similarities, but they're not the same, and no two people are also on the same level either. So when you factor everything like that in, I mean, can you have like an outlined map that, kind of almost like a tree chart that goes this way, that way, and the other? Sure. But in reality, there's not a single, training program that is going to work for everybody across the board. For me here at Pool Butler, one thing we do is, or that I do is I have an individualized training path for every single person in the company, office staff, everybody.
Nice.
And yeah,
A lot of
it's
work.
a lot of work.
Yes.
But worth it in the long run. Honestly, it's extremely worth it. And the beautiful thing about it is no two of them are the exact same. Oh, they can't, because it's not based on just what they need. It's also based on what they want, right?
Right.
So some people may want to stay cleaning pools forever. That's just their niche. That's what it's. But then you have others that want to go into the repair side, or maybe want to go into starting to build pools as well too. So those training paths, like, you have to change them for each of those individuals and stuff. And the way that person's going to learn is not going to be the same that Jake next door is going to learn. It's going to be completely different. The way that I train one person is not the same that I train the other person, especially when you go into the different learning styles that there are. There's just too many factors in there for there just to be kind of like a one size fits all, especially when you're talking about here in Georgia.
Mhm.
Georgia, I mean, the way the weather is here, my parents live 4 hours away down in Savannah by the coast. It's usually about a 20-degree, 30-degree difference down there than it is up in Atlanta. I mean, they get the cold sometimes, but it's not as bad, and stuff. So, the way that training would be down there, especially with how the pools are down there, is different than up here. They have, like, down there, for example, with heaters is kind of a good example you could go off. They can't have natural gas down there. It's all propane, right? Because of you're in the low country, how low it lies and everything like that. So, over there, you're gonna be talking more on the propane side and everything like that, as well as north versus south. Down here, we're gonna talk more about heat pumps than you are probably up north and stuff. So all of those kind of factors, there's just you can make a mock-up, but there's just no way that you can really have just one training program fit every single region, and everything like that. There's too many different factors.
Like, it screams middle school and high school days for me where
Yes.
right, you sit in a class, and I will say I got very good grades. I got actually much better grades in college than I did in high school. We'll leave it there. I know there were numerous times where I was in the class, and I think it was like my economics teacher. She was just talking and talking, and I think it was 15 minutes in, I was like, well, I'm lost. But I continued to sit there, made it a point to act like I knew what I was understanding. And then I had to go home and do a ton of studying, right? I mean, I had other classes I had to study for, but I had to really study in that class. And I think I got away with like a B, we'll say B minus, we'll just be gentle. But you're absolutely right. You cannot expect every program to meet everyone's needs. And especially as you're saying, here you have staff that have different goals. Everyone, I mean, in a group of 30 people, you all are going to have different goals, especially by your region, right? You can't all have the same goals. I'm going to have very different goals than someone in finance, right? So it sounds like you've kind of given us a good example of, climate and definitely local regulations. You really have to adapt to those because they change from every state line to state line or jurisdictional line and state. I mean, you could have a state say, hey, we require this, but then the jurisdiction itself is going to require something completely different than who their neighbor is.
State of Georgia.
Yep. Yeah.
State of Georgia.
I will say I lived there for 2 separate times, about 3 years in Savannah, Georgia, and then 3 years in Ackworth, Georgia, and my heart is in Georgia, even though my
Yeah.
husband's is not. My heart is, but
Okay. Come on back.
yeah, I would love to. So what risks do facilities face when they try and apply a one-size-fits-all training program? I think you kind of briefly touched on it, but I just wanted to bring that question up.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's a great question. So I kind of like to say, you risk making robots, right? You risk there being the same thing over and over again. Not saying that's necessarily bad, but there's problems that can arise with that, right? So if you're just used to this, and this, what about something that you're not used to? What happens when that problem comes forward? You're not going to know necessarily how to handle it, are you?
Right.
So that's a big risk that facilities take, especially when it's the same things over and over and over again. Once that one different thing comes aboard, 9 times out of 10, they have no idea what to do at that point, and there's a lot of potential issues that could come with it and stuff. So that's really a big one, and kinda has always been a big one for me, whenever I talk to any of my facilities and stuff like that, because I do, kinda run our whole commercial side at our company. So any new contracts, visits, I'm the point of contact, everything. I do all of that. So whenever I go out to any of them, and I will do pool schools, I don't do the same one for each one. I can't.
Yeah.
Especially when I have more than one person there, which is how I love it, because I like multiples for facilities to be there, so that way there's more than one person that knows.
Right.
I'm not doing it. One person, especially the superintendent person versus just the maintenance guy. I'm probably gonna give the maintenance guy a more kind of basic rundown, like, "This is what you need," but the superintendent, I'm probably gonna be giving, "These are the nitty-gritty details, and these are why."
Right.
And that why always comes back to being the biggest not knowing the why is one of the biggest kind of issues that I've kind of seen, because it goes back to training. They are sticking with a certain thing, and they're not venturing out to learn more, therefore, when something that they don't know the whys,
Right.
and that has caused all kinds of issues from the commercial side to a residential side to anywhere in between.
So
It's
it
kinda where
sounds
it
like
goes back to.
So it sounds like the why, is that the one if you're gonna give one piece of advice to trainers working across multiple regions, would it be the why?
It would be the why.
Okay. I cannot agree more. Could not agree more. Well, let's kind of change gears a little bit, and I wanna talk about technical trainers and how they only teach skills. But I wanna know how you see a role of a trainer extending beyond just teaching technical skills, or is that all they're doing?
No, so, I mean, the way I see technical trainers, and just really anybody that does any training, you're not just there to teach skills, right? You're there to the way I look at it, you're there to grow a person.
Mm.
You're not, yeah, you're there to teach them something, but you're also sitting there trying to teach them so that they can grow into the best, whether it's employee that they can be, but not even just that, but also as a person. Every person that I train and whatnot, I get down on a personal level with them one way or another. Every single person I've ever come across in a class or they've come to me, anything like they always know I'm a phone call or text message away, no matter what, forever and ever and ever. That's just how I am with it.
You know what? And that's being human. You're human. And I love that. And that's one thing that we're talking about is recognizing how humans, they operate and how to best support them in their educational growth. And so it was, how do you see the role of a trainer extending beyond just teaching technical skills? And I think you kind of really touched on a lot of that, right? You
Yeah.
you make it personal. You make sure that you're available. You're a very important resource. And you're, again, catering to their needs based off what they're trying to do. Because I really do believe that personal educational growth in a company, it's so important. And I think that so many companies just don't put the funds aside to help their staff grow.
Yeah.
You know,
100%. I mean, and that's what we're trying to do differently here.
Mhm.
That's why Tim created this position for me. And that's we have training every single Tuesday.
I love
Now,
it.
right in the last 2 weeks, we haven't because they haven't been
Well,
full 5-day weeks, so it's a little bit different, but, as long as the week is a 5-day week, we have training that Tuesday, whether it's a vendor that comes in or whether it's me standing up and talking, we have some sort of training that happens every single Tuesday, and that, while that goes back to Tim's military background and training being his number one thing, and us having a mindset here as a leadership staff at the Pool Butler of all being on that page of training is everything because we can't
yep.
get anywhere if we're not trained. Definitely has kinda helped and definitely created an environment and culture here that is all about training and all about wanting to learn. All of the training that my techs do from their training paths, excluding, like, classes they're sent to, all that
Mhm.
stuff is done after hours on their own time by choice.
So it sounds like really you're not only supporting your current staff, but you're helping them in becoming future trainers themselves, right?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, so you guys are better supporting your trainers, becoming culture builders rather than just skilled instructors or leaders out there, right?
Yeah, we're teaching them to be people.
Mm-hmm.
Just be people.
Yep. Well, let me ask this. What makes a trainer effective as both a teacher and a leader? I mean, I see
So
that in you, but to give our listeners.
yeah, so I mean, being personable, I mean, really is what it kinda comes down to because if you can't be personable with them, they're not gonna see you as a leader, they're just gonna see you as somebody that is just telling them how to do something, whereas if you have that personal aspect, they're gonna see you as a leader because being a leader is more than just what people think, right? That people think the leader's just the person in charge and stuff, when in reality, it's not just that, I see it as being there for somebody, being there for your people, right? I always say my number one job duty is to be there for the technicians. That is my single number one. If that means I'm busy in the middle of something and I have to drop it, I will. Not a big deal. That's the number one thing. But just being personal with them, getting to know them, because when you do that, they're more likely to come to you. And when they come to you, you can actually solve the issue or actually teach them because they're actually going to be willing to listen.
Tune in next Wednesday for the conclusion of Natalie's conversation with Pool Butler guru, Maddie Van Diver.